Bogart, everybody, my fellow veterans. I want to thank you for coming to this, and I want to thank Maryville College for putting this together. I think this is great. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my life and how it shaped my experience at military college at Maryville College. By the way, I have to say this: it was 30 years and 2 weeks, and I have to tell you that because my wife makes me. When I was engaged to be married, my plan was to get out of the Navy, and I was going to be a deputy sheriff for Berkeley County in South Carolina. So that's what she thought when we were getting married. I tricked her. So who am I? Hey, I'm a musician, right? You can see a bunch of different things up there. There's about 77 years worth of service standing right there in the corner. That's my father and my brother and I.
Wow.
So we all serve. We should get back. I'm a mentor. See the young lady up there? She just got promoted to Chief Petty Officer last summer.
Yay.
So why is she in that picture? She's in that picture because I met her as a E4. And she still calls me to this day and asks for career advice. And I went out and was able to see her get promoted. So, and currently right now she is out to sea and making port calls. The last thing I saw on her Facebook posting, she's in Korea. So, I'm a husband, a very proud husband. Never had any kids. I'm a musician, I'm a mason, I'm a Shriner, I'm a motorcycle rider, I'm a Maryville College graduate, and currently I'm the Health, Safety, and Environment Advisor for Oceaneering International. So I have a lot of different things I've done over my life. I met a lot of different people. So, why Maryville College? That's kind of a personal thing for me in the sense of I did not want to go to a large university.
Right.
I had lined up a job when I was retiring. I thought I was going to be moving to Florida, and I put my house on the market that I had in Virginia, figuring it was not going to sell very quickly. And I went down for the final interview and realized this was not the place for me. So that's one of the things I tell people is it's okay to say no to the job. But when I walked out of that meeting, my phone rang and it was my realtor who said, "Hey, congratulations, we sold your house." And I went, "Oh, no house and no job." So I went to plan B. And my plan B was to go to college and finish off my degree. Now, my brother-in-law, who served in the Air Force, retired, and he actually had picked Maryville out of he just kind of threw a dart at the map and went here and looked it up and said he liked it. So he came here. He actually works over near Oak Ridge. So we'd been visiting the area. We'd seen the college, been by it several times. And I said, you know, I like the idea of going to a smaller college because the student-to-professor ratio is better. I don't want to be just a number. My niece actually graduated from East Tennessee State, as did my brother when he retired out of the Navy. But my niece took a semester and went to UT. And she told me the story about walking into an auditorium that was so filled with students that she didn't have a seat, that she actually had to sit on the steps for the lectures. And she never actually met her professor because the graduate student who was teaching the classes who actually interfaced with them. And I said, I didn't want that. I wanted the people that were going to be teaching me, I wanted to be able to reach out and talk to them and touch them and be able to have some sort of a professional student, professor relationship with them so I can learn something. And that was important. Maryville College, as I learned, accepted the GI Bill. But it wasn't just that. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Yellow Ribbon program, but that was hugely important to me. Because, as Vandy said, I pushed to get as much done as quickly as I could because I was trying to take the best advantage of my GI Bill. You only get so many months of GI Bill. And when it's gone, it's gone. So now, you get 36 months of the GI Bill. I use 13 of it. So the rest of that, I can use towards a master's program. So that was important to me that Maryville College was willing to help me out. For those who are familiar with the GI Bill, I got a housing allowance for it and I got a book stipend. So some of the enrollment challenges that I had. One was getting VA approval. I started in August and I applied for my VA certificate. I didn't understand that, at that point in time, I did not understand that college, first part of the semester starts in August. So when it came around, I was like, okay, well, I applied for my VA certificate, but I didn't actually get approval until I think it was January. And I have to give a big thumbs up to Kathy Wilson because she has helped me so much. Let me tell you something. Getting that process through was very, very painful for me. And then understanding things like FAFSA and all of that, it was difficult. And then when I met with my first academic advisor and I sat down with her and said, these are the things that I want to do. And her response to me was, this is an awful lot of classes. And this is an awful lot of work. And I don't think you really understand the nature of the amount of work and how this is going to go. And I finally looked at her and I said, for the last 20 years, I've worked 60 to 80 hours a week. So coming into this college, this is my job. My job is to be a student. My job is to come here and do these things. I'm not here for the college experience. Right? So fortunately for me, she worked with that, and we laid out a plan, and I was able to accomplish what I wanted to. So they included all my prior college classes. The other thing that was somewhat of a challenge for me to get over was recognizing that every college has their own set of classes that they want you to take just to graduate. So, for example, I understood I was going to have to take a foreign language. That was not news to me, but I had to take some sort of class on religion. Okay. Maryville College has that nice little thing called comps. Not every college has comps. I didn't think that was a bad thing. It was just kind of a surprise, and that kind of goes to learning the language of college because everybody kept talking about comps like I knew what it was. Finally, one day I asked somebody, and they're like, it's the comprehensive exams. Don't you know what that is? No. So that was some of the enrollment challenges. And then the other thing was is getting here and them saying, hey, you have to take an English test. I passed my English classes. But okay, that kind of caught me by surprise. So I showed up with my thesaurus, and my dictionary, and my laptop. And they said, what's that for? And I said, well, they said, comps, I got to write something, right? And they said, oh no, you got to handwrite it. I was like, you got to be kidding me. No. I said, for the last 20 plus years, everything that I have done in the military was done on a laptop or a desktop computer. And you're telling me I got to write. Okay, if you can read it. So I will tell you that I didn't do so well on that first one. I failed that English test because my writing is horrible. But when I went back and sat down and talked with them and explained where I was at, because actually the day I found out I had to do that, I was dressed to come in and go to a job fair in downtown Knoxville. So after I got done with that, I got up, walked out, and went to a job fair. So a little bit different. So one of the things too, as a challenge to Maryville College life, is being a non-traditional student. And for my age, a lot of my professors were in my peer group. So there's that. And then I had the students that were my peer group from attending the college perspective. And so that was kind of interesting and challenging in and of itself. As I got to know my professors, I had one of my professors give me a little razzing one day before class started about, being the senior guy there and, being old enough to be some of the students' parent and whatnot. And I looked at him dead in the eye and I said, I bet you I got more time in the Navy than you have alive. And guess what? He was 29. So there's that. Part of my issue, and this was me, is trying to put past experiences in a box. And I say that from the aspect of I did a lot of things. But coming into the classroom, I'm a student. So I needed to respect the professor to run their class because they were there to teach. And the rest of the students didn't have the same life experience that I had. So it would be counterproductive to the classes and it would have caused a lot of problems if I'd have just talked. Because hey, I'm a sailor, I have experience for everything, and I'm a submarine sailor, so we got more sea stories than Carter has little pills. So that was a challenge for me, and that's just self. Starting mid-year in the J term, that was a challenge because all of the students had been there at least a semester, and in the freshman classes, they'd all been there. They made friends. They all knew each other. So when it came to whether it's study groups or working together on projects, they would all form up very quickly. And you're kind of the odd man out. And then you add to that, hey, I'm the old guy. So that was a little bit of a challenge. And then by the time I got to know people and work with people and everything, completing it in the mid-year on the J term was I wasn't around for the graduation. And the other thing was leadership and team building courses. My last job that took me in going out to sea, I was the chief of the boat. It was my submarine. I had 150 sailors that I had to make sure showed up to work on time, work together. I had to plan $1 million refits for submarines so we can get them out to sea. And I came to Maryville College and they said, hey, you got to come in on a Saturday to do our Mountain Challenge course. And I was like, really? And they said, what's this for? Well, it's about team building. Yeah, I think I got this one. But I also realized something. I kind of thought back, when we would do new onboarding for sailors coming to our command, we made everybody go to it, regardless of whether they were a lieutenant commander, an ensign, or whether they were a new petty officer, or whether they were a chief. We made everybody go to it. And the reason why was because everybody had experience, and when you start getting those group discussions and you shared it. So I went, I enjoyed myself, and so I think there's a lot to be gained from that. So there's a comfort in knowing other veterans. And even though you don't have the exact same experiences, you have shared experiences. And there's an almost instant bond in most cases with veterans. So if you've never had that experience of being a veteran, it's kind of hard to explain it. But it's just, when you walk in and you see somebody and you say, hey, how's your day going? And they say, 6 years ago I was in Fallujah. And the kids in my class today are stressing because next week we have a test. That's just not a big deal. And being able to talk to somebody and say, hey, you're not 18. That is their life experience. That is a big deal. And you need to realize that they don't have your experience, and you can't look at them and say that's not important. Because to them it is important. And so you can bring them along and say, hey, here's some coping mechanisms. These are the things you can do, and realize it may not be as big as you think it is, but to you it's big. But from the veteran perspective, take a look at self and remember, they don't have your life experience. So some of the experiences that I got from other veterans in terms of their sharing stuff with me. Sometimes there's an expectation that people have experiences with technology and computers, and that's not always the case. So sometimes, and as human beings, we don't always want to go say, hey, I don't know how to use a computer. I don't know how to use Microsoft Word. I don't know how to use PowerPoint. And you're sitting here telling me in class I got to do a project, and I got to go do all this stuff. And oh, by the way, if you don't have a computer, it's not a big deal because, hey, the library's got computers, the student center's got computers. But if I've never used one,
Right.
how do I learn that? A professor discounting somebody's life experience. I actually had this one take place where a young veteran came to me and he says, hey, my project for my class is I have to do a resume. Would you mind helping me with it? To convert my military experience and what I did and translate it to a resume. Well, from the military side of the house, I think I'm going to throw this out here for the veterans. This particular person ran a rifle range. So everything dealing with a rifle range, so you're talking about buying ammunition, you're talking about making sure all the weapons get clean, you're talking about being in a foreign country where you're training their forces. So now you've got 50,000 people that in a 6-month period of time you've got to cycle through. How do you put that in writing? Because to the veterans here, they probably just got everything I said. It makes sense. Hey, I know exactly what this guy was doing. He was the NCO in charge. So we turned around and used carefully crafted words to describe managing a budget. We talked about, how we manage the amount of people going through and the training process and all this. And worked pretty hard together on it to get a usable, workable resume that accounted for his military experience. And I saw him a couple days later and I said, so how did it go? He said, my professor gave it back to me. I said, really? Why is that? He said, well, because the professor said I couldn't have done what I said I did. Really? So I was kind of surprised by that. And I said, well, would you like me to go have a conversation with your professor? And he says, no, I don't want to do that because I don't want to make waves. I still got to, finish out the semester, get my class grades and everything. I said, but so here's a guy who went and did stuff, and the professor just didn't recognize it. And oh, by the way, the guy looked like a typical college student. He looked young for his age. So the professor's experience had been, hey, it's a freshman class. They come out of high school. They may have worked odd jobs. There couldn't be any possible way this guy could have done this. So, but the professor, I don't know how the final outcome was that because I didn't want to push into it. But just remember that they have experiences. Some of us ran into this. I know I personally struggle with this sometimes. You realize as a veteran, when you have experience and you go, I know that I've got 5 classes going on right now. And I know that those professors are not in collusion, although it may seem like that to some of the younger students. They don't sit around and talk to each other and go, hey, have you got a project going yet? No, hey, let's assign them a project at the same time, see how much stress we can put on them. Now, every professor has their class, they have what they're planning to do for the semester. So I would at times say, hey, let's get together as a group and work on this, and they'd be like, no, the project's not due till Wednesday, so let's do this on Tuesday night. No, that doesn't work for me. So, and I know I'm not the only one that had that, but that's just life. And I will say that some of the other veterans also had frustrations with the enrollment or re-enrollment process, and a lot of it is because, we're not necessarily first-generation college students. We just didn't know. I didn't know you had to redo FAFSA once a year. I didn't know I had to redo certain paperwork. And it's, when you get it and it's like, well, what is this all about? And your stress level goes up because, oh, by the way, you're still doing classwork and everything. Hey, what's going on? And that's, again, I have to go back and say, Kathy helped me so much. And by the way, you can pay me $5 later, all right? So what I got from some of the other students, I reached out to, actually there's still a couple of my group mates from some of the classes I was in that I still talk to, and I reached out and I said, so what is that having somebody, and I'm not looking to pat myself on the back, because there was a lot of other veterans that were in this, what did you get from it? And some of them said, hey, I really enjoyed having the older students, because it brought the discussions within the classes to a higher level. Some of them said having one in their work group forced them to focus more and help them get organized for other classes. So those are some of the positive things that the students feed back. So I couldn't do this, without bringing something up to give to the veterans and to share with your other veterans. Remember, you're the new person. FNG, fun new guy. And it's up to you to learn how to fit in, okay? Remember, there's 1,000 plus or minus college students here at Maryville College. It's not Maryville College students' place to make you feel welcome. You're just like every other student that comes here. You got to figure out what makes you tick and how you fit in with the group here. Most students and professors don't know what you say when you said you were the LPO or the NCO of something. What is that? Network. Can't say that enough. Network with each other. network with your professors, because guess what? You're always being watched. You know, you may remember that from your time in the military. Somebody is always watching you and what you're doing. And as part of that networking, and I'm going to throw this out to the group at large, I always do this, this is what I call the what you do with what you get. Somebody gives you a business card. In this case, I got Mr. Weinbaum's over there. So what am I going to do with that? I stick it in my wallet, and then 6 months from now, pull it out and go, yeah, where did I meet this guy? Oh, yeah, okay. Or it goes on a desk drawer somewhere. Flip it over on the back side. When you get home, write where you were at, write what you were doing, and what you talked to this person about.
That's right.
Okay? Whether it's, hey, we talked about my life, my career, my goals, we talked about potential employment, we talked about veterans networking, we talked about, you know, whatever it is. Put that on there and stick it away. That's going to be helpful to you when you go back and you find a card and you go, oh yeah, hey, I remember this now. And then the second thing is when you get home, send that person an email and say, hey, I met you at whatever it was, and we talked about my life, my career, my goals, or potential employment, or a project. I want to thank you for your time. Always, that's really important. Thank people for their time. You know why? Because it makes them realize that you respect them for who they are and what it is that they do. And then if you want to ask them about maybe future networking, or say, hey, I'd like to stay in contact, or whatever, go there. That's just something that I do. Not all that are here on the GI Bill are veterans. We have family members. Okay? And they bring their own unique experiences to the table. I was telling Bandy this morning, in 1969, my father was in Vietnam. I was 7 years old. I had no idea what Vietnam was. I just knew it was some far off country. And I knew that on the news at night that I would see these planes landing at Travis Air Force Base, and there were people that were coming off, and they were missing arms and legs and eyes, and they were all bandaged up. And all I knew is that's where my dad was. So at that point in time, I hadn't served in the military. I had that unique experience, and guess what? Some of the family members may bring some of that to the table. So as veterans, don't discount the family members just because they didn't serve. At least not in the traditional sense. And it may help you to consider the degree process as an objective. Make a plan to complete the objective, work the plan, and deviate when necessary. Because remember, what is a plan? A plan is something you deviate from. If you don't have a plan, you can't do that. There is academic help, and some of us need it. I will tell you that I got tutoring in inferential statistics. I would not have made it. Okay? But they may be a little younger than you. So, just because you're older than the tutor doesn't mean they cannot help you. So, I kind of pulled this one in from a previous presentation that was put together here at Maryville College. So what are some of the misconceptions that people have about veterans? Military wasn't our only option, because some people think that. We aren't all in the same service, and oh, by the way, this is a personal pet peeve of mine, and I'm going to share this because, hey, I got the floor. Marines are not soldiers. Okay? Marines are not soldiers. Soldiers are not Marines. Airmen are not soldiers. Soldiers are not airmen. And sailors are the best. Okay? Not all of us have been in combat. We don't all have PTSD or TBI. That'd be traumatic brain injury. Not all of us carried a gun on a daily basis, although I will tell you we carried the big guns on the submarine. They shot a long way off. We don't randomly destroy things. We aren't all older men and women. Not all students on the GI Bill are veterans, which I brought that up. And not all vets want to be recognized. We had people here in Maryville that did not want to be recognized as a veteran. They just wanted to come in and do their thing and go, and that's okay. And not all veterans are retired. But yes, some people do think that veterans are not smart. Okay? You gotta love social media.
That's funny.
And you notice that's a Marine response down there too. So here's some things to consider for today's discussions as we move forward. So for your colleges, how are the veterans groups' needs? How are they unique? What offices here at the college are most likely to serve veterans, and how can we do it better? And so what are some of the emotional needs of veterans, and are you equipped to help? It's just thoughts for consideration on those. And I'm hoping that ties into where we move later on today. So now's the time I open for questions.
On an earlier slide, you talked about the veteran expectations of Kansas Life, Kate Ashbury.
Yeah, I missed that one, but that's okay. We had a young man that showed up here, who, in his opinion, he wanted the college experience, if you will. And when I reference Hady Ashbury, you think of the 1970s Grateful Dead, sex, drugs, rock and roll, and he was a over 21 student who was a freshman that wanted to live in the freshman dorms, and
Bad idea.
yeah, bad idea, bad idea. So it just goes to show you that not everyone that comes to the table is as focused as others. And from a veteran perspective, I know that several of us reached out to him and tried to help bring his focus around, but he kind of had it in his head what he wanted, and he went down the path and he never finished out the school year.
One thing that you moved by was the athletic sports. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, one of them, I was kind of hoping he's going to be here today to tag on to that. As a group, as a military, we did a lot of things in groups as units. And coming into an athletic, if you have sports and you have veterans that are interested in those sports, that's always useful and helpful to get them to join that. Sean, when he came here, he started with the cross country and has done well with Maryville College. Yeah, kind of showed the young kids that, hey, you can be a little bit older and still run. They have to work hard to keep up with it. So.
Master Chief, my name is Joe Wyram. I'm from UT Chattanooga, Veteran Service Coordinator, retired Army.
I'll speak slower for you then. Okay.
My question is to you: you said you graduated with your undergraduate from Maryville last year.
Yes.
You said you're going to be going towards your graduate degree next.
I'm looking at a couple of different online programs. Yes.
What about coming to UTC?
You would have to pay me an awful lot of money to quit my job. I had no burning desire to move back up into the Washington, D.C. area. And as a matter of fact, when they approached me about a job, I kind of snickered a little bit and said, you can't pay me enough to come back up there. Yeah, apparently they can't. So, but I'll be glad to talk to you offline to see what programs you have that may work for them.
Okay.
Steve, it might be interesting to tell them what you actually are doing.
My job, believe it or not, ties back to my job in the Navy. I am a health, safety, and environmental advisor. So when I was on a submarine, my job as the corpsman was the only medically trained person on the submarine, but that also meant that I had all of the safety and occupational health programs. So when you start talking about hearing conservation, site conservation, radiation health, all of those things that would tie into that. When the ship would go into dry dock, I'd be responsible for making sure that the guys understood what the rules were being in dry dock and scaffold safety and working at heights and fall protection and all that stuff. So the company that I work for, called Oceaneering, one of the things that actually attracted to me about their safety program is the fact that it's called, they call it is operations-led HSE supported. So I am not the OSHA cop, which is great, because that means I don't have to run around telling everybody, hey, you don't have your helmet, you don't have your glasses on. I actually have the opportunity to sit down and look at the jobs that we're doing and the planning that we're doing, and when you start saying things like, hey, we're going to build this and it's going to be 10 feet up in the air, and then I'll be asking the question, okay, how are you going to have the welders do this? How are they going to work 10 feet in the air? What's your plan? What is your plan for that? And oh, by the way, if here's what the requirements from OSHA are. And yes, and I'll sit down and help them work with that. When you start talking about lockout, tagout, and, hey, how are you going to dissipate the energy? Have you considered this?
Wow.
The engineers are pretty smart people. We do some pretty amazing stuff. The company, the part of the company that I work for represents about 10% of oceaneering overall. So we have done things like we built the Transformers ride down at Universal Studios. We've built and installed the new SeaWorld ride, which is the world's first trackless technology. Some of you may have heard about the Confederate submarine, the Hunley, which was found by somebody else, but they came to Oceaneering and we actually raised it. Back in '95, some of you may remember some of the work that was done on the Titanic, where they sent ROVs down and did all the video thing. Yeah, that was us. Our company capped off the big oil spill in the Gulf. So from a company perspective, they do a lot of things, and we have a really good safety record. So that's kind of what attracted me to them.
I have 2 questions. What would, say, words. A person going into the Navy right now, what would you say to that person?
My first question, and this isn't specifically to the Navy, when I talk to young folks about serving in the military, my first question is what do you think you want out of it?
Okay.
If you want a technical experience, then my advice is always the Navy, I think, has the best technical training. If you don't care what job you have and you're willing to go and do whatever somebody needs you to do, then I'd throw the Army, because the Army has a significant amount of different jobs and they do a lot of different things, and you never know where you're going to wind up with the Army. If you want to have a great quality of life and get good training, I always say go to the Air Force, because of all the branches of service, go to the Air Force. If you want to put on a uniform and have more pride about yourself and your job than all of the branches combined, go to the Marines. But I will tell you, if you go to the Marines, you might be living with an austere lifestyle. Because being the smallest branch and being part of the Department of the Navy, the Marines funding isn't always what it ought to be.
Is it good or bad?
Yes. It can be both.
You got another lesson?
Are you an environmental engineer?
No, I am not.
Okay, Steve's going to be around for a couple of minutes. Do you